morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Renew Podcast. I am your host, Kristin Andre, and back with me today, we have one of my co-hosts extraordinaire, Miss Shelby Triick. And we may or may not regret this today because we're testing some waters today because y'all know I like to stay kind of middle ground. I don't really get too controversial, but today's episode is entitled "The World Has Gone Whack-a-doodle." Whack-a-doodle, which you guys know I love to say, but here's the thing. There have been some things going on recently, maybe the past week or the past 2 years, that have me in my feels a little bit. I'm my job in hosting this. I am not a shock jock. I am not Howard Stern or anything. You guys know I tread like right in the middle, but I think we need to talk about this. I think we need to have some conversations. So I brought Shelby in.
The time
has come for some conversations. So I brought Shelby in to join me today to talk about the world going a little bit wackadoodle. But not just that. I'm not here to point fingers. What I'm here to talk about is how we need to learn to be grown-ups and have conversations and hear both sides and respect people's opinion. That's really what I want to get after today. And we did notice, I know Laura pointed out, we're wearing our red, white, and blue today.
Yeah.
So we're representing America as we head into this. I know I don't say that. I really don't like it saying like that. Oh. We are representing and talking about America and talking about our opportunities to just be a little kinder and embrace people and have some tough conversations, but ones that I think we've come to the point that we need to start having and not canceling people. I hate to use the word cancel culture because I've been tiptoeing around this topic for a while, but I think it's come to the point where I don't really want to talk about canceling things. I want to talk about why we need to be able to be grown-ups and talk to each other.
Well, because cancel culture, why don't we call it bully culture? I mean, we're so opposed to bullying in schools and bullying people in general, but cancel culture, to me, is just the epitome of bullying your way into or out of something.
I'd never really thought about it that way. But it's true because sometimes what's been tough for me, and I've had this conversation, we've talked about this a little bit with my kids, is a lot of times I see it in the younger generation. I could be wrong, but I see it in the teens, 20s, that if somebody doesn't agree with you, your opinion, your choices in music, your stances, they just, instead of saying, oh, that's interesting, why do you feel the way you do? I'd love to hear your side, and understanding both sides and educating themselves on both sides and making an educated decision that's right for them. I'm going to be the last one to tell somebody what they should do, what they should think, unless you're living at my house and I'm paying your bills. But other than that, I think people aren't doing that. They're just going, that's wrong, Shelby. I'm done.
But the interesting thing about where we are in this generation and them growing up native to technology and social media, quite frankly, social media allows you to embed yourself in an echo chamber. And so only listen to those people that agree with you, only hear, and consume information that you agree with. And so the
algorithms do that too.
Well,
you're only going to be shown what fits your little
Yes, you
interest.
have to work really hard to make sure you're getting other influences. But as, kids and young adults and maybe even some middle-aged people like me.
Middle-aged people. Well, yeah. We all are. But
if you're constantly sitting in a room of voices only filled with what you believe in, then it's very difficult to accept.
And that's what I wanted to bring to light today. I really did, is because it's less about cancel culture and more about the fact that you can never understand a topic if you don't take a look at both sides. I don't care what the topic is. No. I really don't.
Well, what happened to conversation?
It's right.
Conversation.
But I think, listen, go back to when we were kids, and this was before technologies, before cell phones, way before the bag phone, all this stuff. If we didn't agree with somebody, we'd probably beat them up after the bus stop. But it was okay to have friends and to have people that didn't think the way you did.
Yeah.
And now I feel like
I don't remember thinking about it.
I don't remember thinking about it either. It
wasn't a thing.
But we've entered this dangerous, I'm going to call it dangerous. We've entered a dangerous point in society right now where if someone doesn't agree with us, they are bad. And I think you were right. They do get bullied. I try not to bully people. If people don't agree with me, I'm like, okay. But a lot of people do. A lot of people will go on the offensive and say, this person's dumb, this person's an idiot, this person's not educated. And I think they just have we all have different experiences.
It's an organized tantrum. I mean,
that kind of is.
You get all these people on board to feel the same way you do. And maybe they already do, but you're influencing them to feel the same way you do. And then it's just a collective tantrum until the opinion is or not the opinion, but until it goes away. And then, okay, now we don't have to deal with that anymore. Like, no, it didn't go away. You just pushed it into, like, I don't know the right word.
In submission. I mean, it's really what it is. Yeah. But it's true. And it's
underground.
But things are getting, this is what made me think of it. They're getting out of hand. And we just had the whole Spotify thing, which I hate to even bring up because y'all comment, do whatever you want to say. I don't care. Let's comment. But it's whether or not you agree with Joe Rogan, and I've seen some of his shows. I don't watch them. I've seen some of his shows. You're like, I haven't even paid attention.
Well, no, I've paid attention to the fact that the people who are condemning and coming down on this were a part of the counterculture in the 60s. And saying like, government bad, don't blah. But now they're the ones saying you bad, like thumb on you. Like,
So what was interesting, and this is not a stance on Rogan, but it was funny because I saw this meme, and y'all don't have to agree with this, but it was pretty funny. So all right, for those of you guys that have been in a cocoon the last week, Neil Young pulled his catalog from Spotify because he did not agree with Joe Rogan's stance.
Did, right? Was he the first?
It was her. He was first, and then Joni Mitchell, and then there's some other artists that have said they might. So here's the thing. This is the way I looked at it. You're right. They were in the counterculture. One of his lyrics says, "Keep on rocking in a free world." It legit says that in one of his songs. And I'm like, Neil, sweet pea. Come on now. And I'm not a huge Neil Young fan. I'm not a huge Joe Rogan fan. I don't know. I mean, I know who they both are. I respect their work. I'm not taking a stand for either one of them. But what I think this does is we're really getting close to flying in the face of
censorship.
Of censorship, and that scares me.
Who gets to decide what disinformation is?
That's kind of what it is. Is like I don't know that the information that Rogan is sharing is accurate or right or wrong. I don't know. I have not watched it that much.
Nobody asked a podcaster to be like a Joe Rogan or even a Kristin Andre. Nobody comes in and says, okay, these are the tenets you have to follow,
right?
Like, and editorialization and all the
well, and that's the thing. And what I will say, one thing that I did respect about him and his response or lack of response to this is he would, he has, I think, come forward and said he would interview whoever, like, he will interview both sides. I don't know. I don't watch everybody. It. But I think that's the opportunity is instead of saying, I'm done, I'm pulling my stuff, if you don't want to listen to Spotify, don't listen to Spotify. There's plenty other music things. But whatever, if you're going to take that stance, then my urging of society as a whole is let's take the stance, instead of taking the stance of saying, I'm done with you, let's take the stance of saying, okay, I'm recognizing that you feel really different than me on this, and you're as passionate about it as I am on the other side, and let's have your little pros talk and my little pros talk, and let's just present the material and let everybody make their own decision instead of bullying or canceling. That's what I would love to see. Now, maybe I'm a little living in a Pollyanna universe here, but we need to allow people to make their own decisions and not allow, I just think it's a slippery slope when we're letting big companies and big people dictate how we're supposed to feel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Now with that, there's a second part. That's part A. Part B, I'm a little tirade today, is more that once we are presented with both sides, which I think we need to do a better job at. I will be the first one to admit that. We all need to do a better job of looking and searching information on both sides for whatever the topic is. Mm-hmm. But after that, what it involves is critical thinking, which seems to be lacking.
We have educated critical thinking out the window, though.
I agree with that, too, and that's what's a little...
Which is kind of an oxymoron. We've educated critical thinking out there. I don't...
We have, and that's what scares me a little bit. And I don't know. Why do you think that is? Is it social media? Is it where? I don't know. I think we have too, because
I wish I knew, because when I was in college, when I was at university, one of the things, in studying poli-sci and international affairs, it was important to argue all the different points, and argue not being the way I would use it like today, like it's the discourse, the conversation, like you had to defend your position, and it was to
that's the rules of debate,
but it was also respecting the information, that was being given to you as well, and having a thoughtful. Now, you could get animated, you could get emotional, you could, and maybe you had to dial that back, but the tenet of it was to be respectful of the person you were talking to. You portray, your opinions and give your thoughts, but then listen. And now, if somebody has a counter thought, they need therapy. It's just an ungracious conversation.
I think grace. All right, so the ungracious, I think, is a word I want to stick on for a minute, because I've talked about that a lot on the show. I think as a society, we're losing grace, meaning we're not showing other people the grace that we used to, that we should, that we would. I mean, you guys, I've said this before, I have a strong Christian faith, so I think you should be gracious to people. There are tons of people in my world that I don't agree with. I don't, I would challenge them on their actions, but I'm still going to love them and still going to show them grace. I just may not agree with it. Now, does that mean there's some artists I don't listen to? Yeah, there's TV shows I don't watch. I don't watch many TV shows, but there's artists I don't listen to. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be disrespectful or bullying or saying, I'm going to never pay attention to you again and you're less than human. And that's where I feel like we're getting to. I feel like so many people are like, oh, well, you're less than human. And I'm curious, because I know we got a lot of people listening on the live. What do y'all think? What do we need to do to move forward? I don't want to just kind of wax poetic about all the things wrong with the world. I want to know what we can do to move forward, because there's all this discussion about, cancel culture and people doing this and who's wrong, but no one's having the conversation about, as a society, what steps do we need to take to make things better so our kids and our grandkids don't have to go through that, because our kids we're messing them up. I've already told mine, I'll be paying for therapy, but they're in a tough spot. They have only grown up with this. They've only grown up with, if you don't agree, I'm going to argue with you about why you're wrong, as opposed to trying to come to a collective, what's best for us as a whole. I think it's going to be a big challenge in interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. There's going to have to be a big shift. Ryan and I talk all the time, social media will have to go down for, a month for like a global reset or something. And all of us are addicted to.
We are, I know.
To it. So when I say that, it's not like, oh, these young people shouldn't be on social. We all are, but we're addicted to the likes. We're addicted to, all the things that social media embodies, and then we're also addicted to the information. I no longer have to think, because my brain is external to my body now. Like, I don't have to remember facts. I can look them up, and so I don't know how that shifts when we're all so dependent on this tool for information. If I think of social media as a tool, we're dependent on this. But so there's going to have to be something more seismic to shift, because social media and this was all seismic. First the internet itself, and the evolution of that, and then how we do. It's all been rolling forward. So I think it's just going to take a certain group, and I don't know if it's going to be disparate all over, to kind of start to bend that.
And I don't know what it'll take, because you were talking about, with everything with social and our brains, and I was guilty of that last weekend. Anytime I had a question, I'm like, oh, let me go to Google. Let me look at this. Who sings this?
Remember anything.
What movie was this person in? I'm always searching things before, where we'd have to think a little bit more. And I think maybe since technology and computers, everything, and these are great advances that we have in society.
I've lost confidence in my own knowledge, because I'm like, let me double check that.
I know. I had that conversation this past weekend. Because I don't want to be
canceled. Because I don't want somebody to go, oh, well, I looked it up, and like I try to be a precise talker. I'm not a precise person, but I try to be.
Well, you're also in corporate America too, in a high level position. So you've got this pressure on you, like, I need to have it right.
Yeah, my facts have to be good.
Yeah.
I have to have good facts. Now, facts facts are facts, but information can shift and change, and there needs to be some grace for information shifting and changing. I have the facts I have today, but then tomorrow there will be legislation, or tomorrow, something will shift.
Yeah, because you're in a world that deals with tax and incentives and a lot of legislation.
A lot of legislation.
But let's think about that for a minute. So as things change, as facts change, as the world evolves, what do you think, I mean, how do you deal with it? What do you think people can do to kind of say, okay, and to stay educated?
I think
because we're being educated right now with whatever we're being educated with. Like, I know I'm pretty, I stay very intentionally, I stay very apolitical online and, probably in the world, my circle knows kind of where I fall, but I purposefully don't try to be controversial.
I don't know
only
where
because
I fall anymore.
I think
I'm politically homeless.
You're politically homeless. I've never heard that one.
Because I came up with it.
I like it.
I need to trademark it.
I like that. Let's gonna get
now
that
somebody
right now.
else will.
but if you think about it, like I purposefully stay very I don't want to say middle ground, but I just don't talk about it. And the reason I don't is not because I'm ashamed of my views or not because I'm not solid in my views. It's because I feel like everyone needs to do what's right for them.
Agreed.
I may not agree with you. There are some people, I'm sitting there thinking some people are whack-a-doodle with what they're doing for sure. But the reason I titled the episode this is not because I feel like their opinions are whack-a-doodle. I feel like it's because I feel like the inability and the lack of desire to have adult conversations, tough conversations, controversial, not even controversial, tough conversations. That's what makes relationships grow and develop and build a mutual trust.
Right, but
when
I mean,
you can have tough
when
conversations.
I think about how you titled this, and the world is whack-a-doodle. I mean, I have made personal choices with my dollars. There are things that I do not buy. There are companies I don't give my wealth to because I disagree. And so I've made my own little personal stand that probably hasn't mattered a hill of beans to these companies. But now we're seeing these seismic shifts because companies are coming out and saying, boom, this is how we feel. And everyone's like, okay, well now, if the company feels that way and they're able to move this needle much further than Shelby Triick is able to move the needle because, her $10 or her $100 to this company, only matters X.
Yeah.
And I don't have all that influence. The companies have all this influence, or these individuals like the Spotify conversation have all this influence, and they're now somehow speaking for an entire group of people that maybe don't want to speak that way. And maybe this is tangential. I'm trying to remember what the original question was.
Well, no, it's about being able to have conversations. It's about being able to come together and have, be critical thinkers and have conversations. And if we're talking about the big companies, and that's really where we see the term cancel culture was coined, is not just big companies, but influencers and stars and athletes and all this stuff is, we've got the Super Bowl coming up, and I don't think the teams that are still in it are as controversial, but there have been controversial teams in the past. I'm like, it's football. Like, football, it's not politics.
But controversial,
it's
I don't
football.
think, I'm pretty excited about this halftime show, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, the halftime show is going to be great. But I'm excited about the halftime show.
Past years, the halftime shows have been controversial in themselves. So I'm hopeful that this halftime show will be
Well,
just
fun. What? If we think back, let's think back for a minute, because we're talking about things that people, why I want people to be able to have conversations and just understand that it's okay. It is okay if you don't agree with people. It is okay if you don't like the halftime show. We had a debate about this a few years ago. Remember the Jennifer Lopez halftime show where she was dancing and everybody's like, "Oh, a 50-year-old woman shouldn't be dressed like that."
Oh, yeah.
And my response was, I'm a 50-year-old woman. My body starts looking like that, I will be wearing that outfit daily. Y'all will see it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because if I could rock that little bitty outfit, I'd be rocking it. Y'all see me at Kroger like this.
Oh yeah.
Good for her. I was like, if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah.
Don't watch. But I was proud of her. I thought it was fantastic.
Well, like, who cares?
I know it wasn't I wasn't taking a stance on.
I'm tired of people telling everybody else what they think is appropriate. Like, I can tell you what I think is appropriate for me, and I might have opinions about what someone else is wearing and think, I would have made a different choice, but that's their choice. And they came to that choice based on whatever is making them feel good that day.
Yep.
And whatever, and I mean, I think that speaks to the whole cancel culture, like making decisions for yourself, being true to who you are. I'm hoping and hopeful that people are consuming vast amounts of information from different sources and getting all those things and making these informed choices. But I think that's what it comes down to. Informed choices, informed consent, informed everything. And those are loaded words in this conversation.
Well, and they are, and you just said that people are making choice that made them feel good that day, and I think that's the thing is be informed, but be the only way you can truly be informed, and this would be my advice to anybody on any topic whatsoever. And I am, like I said, I am not taking a stand one way or the other because that's not my job to do that. My job is to take a stand in my own life and to make the informed choices that are right for me and my family. And it's y'all's job to make the informed choices that's right for you, but to be informed. Think back to high school debate. I don't even know if they have debate clubs anymore, but when we had debate and I took it in college, and great course. But what they always did is you had to learn both sides. You had to understand, and frequently the professor would make you take the stance of what they knew you were opposed to, the opposing side, because they saw the value of really getting in the opposing view's shoes. And understanding, okay, that's the whole premise of debate club and debate class. And that's where I'd love to take those concepts and let everyone in their own way, whatever works for them, to say, okay, I need to do this. I need to put myself in their shoes. I need to try to educate myself. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. I'm just saying you need to try to think for a minute why somebody may feel the way they do.
With cancel culture, though, they cancel from a high chair. They don't cancel from across the table. I mean, if you got Neil Young and Joe Rogan and Joni Mitchell and Brene Brown, whoever it is, across the table and have a conversation, they'd probably have more in common than they all realize. And then maybe they have sat around a table together. And the same for politics. But you cancel from over here. I'm putting my hand really wide for those of you that can't see me. You cancel from far away and from 100,000-foot view, and you're not having those intimate conversations. And I mean, disinformation. I mean, you're canceling information you don't agree with, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable to somebody else informing other thoughts. Right. There's not one way.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. We've got to. I think that's where my frustration is. It's just because I have seen and I have experienced personally relationships go by the wayside.
Yeah,
close friends and family, everything just destroyed because people can't put themselves in someone else's shoes. People can't understand why somebody may think. I am in no way saying you got to agree with me. I'm just saying, hear me, understand my viewpoint, and if you want to make a different viewpoint, fine, totally fine. Now, with that, I am also not advocating that you're hurtful to somebody in doing that. If my views or opinions or whatever are hurtful to somebody, that's a different story. But my expectation would be that somebody's coming to me and go, look, this really hurts me, and here's why. But like you said, the conversation is at the table, not from a high chair or a high chair, depending on if you're acting like a toddler.
Tantrums. I mean, I'm constantly in conversations, and I, like you, I hate to think that I'm guarded, but I don't always just put it all out there in conversations. I do, like with you and with some of my very, very closest friends.
But you and I aren't always on the same page politically.
I don't think we're on the same page politically at all.
But that's what's funny is some of my closest friends and I have vastly
But our value systems are very similar. So it doesn't.
And we value education and we value discussion and communication.
And trying to do good in the world, and everybody's good looks different, but.
And I think that's an important thing to consider, because if I look at my closest friends and the people I'm having these conversations with, I would say my inner circle that I talk about so frequently on here, we are vastly different.
Very.
Vastly politically different, different religions, relationships are very different, family of origins very different. And we don't agree on a lot of very controversial topics. However, those are still some of my closest relationships, because we will have discussions. We will try to understand the other person's viewpoint. We'll try to figure out, okay, why do you feel the way you do, and understand and respect each other's opinions, even in stances, even if they aren't ours and we don't agree with. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because it starts locally. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, people are idiots, I would say find people that are different from you. If your entire circle looks exactly the same as you do, You know, I mean, and there was that me. If your circle looks the same, you don't have a circle.
Yeah.
You got a bubble, and we
Yeah.
got to pop the bubble because it's the only way you're going to start to understand and appreciate where others are coming from. You don't have to agree with them.
Just be open to the conversation. I mean, we're in such a polarizing climate. It's either or, and it's just frustrating. I find,
But that's fearful to me. Not fearful. Fear. It's scary to me, I should say, because we are polarizing. And I fear it's going to get worse and that's why I wanted to talk about this, because unless we can start to have critical conversations, it's going to get more polarizing.
Mm-hmm. But it's all rooted in fear. Our fear of not wanting to discuss what we want to discuss, our fear of what other people are, with more influence, more power, are discussing on our behalf.
Right.
And how they're changing the conversation and what can be put into a public forum.
Right.
I mean, that's what I think is so frightening about the Spotify. I mean, if I use that word, frightening about the Spotify conversation. I mean, changing what can be heard by other people. Even if you think it's disinformation, I mean, you're going to have to scrub the internet. You're going to have to.
Well, that's where critical thinking comes in.
Yeah, you're going to have to scrub the dark web. You're going to have to scrub, deep fakes. And that's part of the problem. I've been in several conversations about that. This generation coming up, one of their favorite questions is, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
Because they can't trust any resource or source that's presented to them because it can be manipulated so amazing. I mean, I don't know what generation is it Zennials or, because I think it's right below.
Yeah, they have a new word, but I don't
there's
know
another word.
Yeah.
They didn't think Helen Keller was real.
I was surprised to hear that. Two of my kids, my two younger kids were like, actually it's my youngest, but they're like, well, no, Helen Keller wasn't real. And I was like, how? Where in the world?
And it was like a TikTok joke. It was a joke, but it went viral.
It totally did.
And so you have this conversation, and part of me, I hear that question, I'm like, it just makes me cringe. But then the other part of me is, well, how do they know? Yeah. What are we based? If we can't lay our eyes on it, touch it, feel it, see it, how do you know? And we can't do that with history. You can't go back in time and
you can't
touch Helen Keller's arm and be like, okay, yep, you are.
We'll probably be able to soon.
We probably couldn't refer to her this way now, but deaf, dumb, and blind.
Yeah.
And
she was intelligent.
Yeah,
sure.
incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
But when you the way that it's described, and
it's interesting. But the whole thing goes back to seeking information. And I was watching a news show over the weekend, and what was interesting is the lady that was interviewing somebody, and it was a controversial topic, and the topic is irrelevant, so I'm not even going to bring it up. But what I thought was interesting, I'd never seen this interviewer before, and she interviewed two people that were on polar opposite sides of the issue she was talking about, and not together. So there was no, she interviewed, a lady on one particular side and a gentleman on the other, and she asked great questions, thought-provoking questions. Why do you think this? Your critics would say this. Help me understand that. And she asked them both. She did a beautiful job in the interview because she was truly, as a journalist, going, okay, help us understand.
Yeah.
And what was so cool is when she wrapped it, she didn't say, here's what you should think. She just said, here's, this is what this, I'm watching it going, okay, well, this is good.
Well, it's like the old 60 Minutes.
It's the old 60 Minutes.
I mean,
it is. And that's the thing is we've got an opportunity as a society, and that's where I want the Whack-a-doodle to end. We have an opportunity as a society to ask for that, to demand that, and we're not. We're allowing people to just say, you're wrong and you're an idiot and I'm canceling you and you're done. And that's not okay. It's just not. It pisses me off, Shelby.
Well, it really makes me mad too.
Because I'm seeing too many people hurt. We're seeing too many, I mean, there's a whole nother topic, but we're seeing so much, anxiety and depression and suicide and all this stuff. And it has to be affected by the fact that people can't talk about their problems. They can't talk about disagreements without fear of what are people going to think? What are they going to?
It just all comes down to fear. You can't talk about your problems. You can't talk. I mean, I'm repeating what you just said. But problems, feelings, how you really think, for fear that you're going to be abandoned by people that you thought were your friends or that you trust. Now, we're old enough to say, well, if they're going to abandon you, they're not your friends. Move on. You'll find others. But as a young person, I mean, I just made the comment to friends this weekend. Like, I'm so glad I survived elementary, middle school, high school, and college without social media.
Yep.
I mean,
it would have been, it's so different. And I love social media. They have great,
sure,
and the interwebs have great things they brought to us, but it's so different.
It's been a jumping off platform for so many things and to be able to consume so much information. But the information gets out there so quickly that it's not verified. And I mean, I think that's part of the tumbleweed of this conversation. And then big entities, big voices come in and squash it. But, you know.
So what would you like to see? What would you like to see different? Like, how can we do what our group of friends have done? So if we look at our friends, are the people that we're around a lot, and I'm not talking totally inner circle, but a little bit further out, I would say we have a great deal of respect for one another and our differences. But how do people as a whole, because we're talking society, we're talking about, because interweb goes everywhere.
Be open, pause, take a minute, think about what you're really responding to. I mean, just, one of the things that this is such a small thing. Somebody will post something and I'm like, wow, that sounds crazy. I'll go look up information rather than just resharing it. I've been guilty of resharing things that aren't true at times because I'm like, whoa, because I just thought for sure.
Yeah.
But then I get caught in it, in those headlights, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look it up, see if best I can, find out if this is true or not. Because even if it looks interesting and fun, it may not be.
Yes.
So I think some part of it is just pause and just accept that this may be good for someone else, even if it's not good for me. And is it harming them? What's the harm? And I think anybody that is trying to do something believes that they are keeping other people from harm. Yes. They believe so strongly in their passion and belief that by going out there and saying, no, don't do this, and trying to eliminate it from the conversation is because they believe it's harmful. But the person that they're eliminating also thinks that. So everybody is doing the best that they can. So pause, just think. And, if you were sitting across from your best friend and they were sharing this information, what would be your response? Don't hide behind the keyboard.
I think that's a good differentiation. People hide behind the keyboard a lot. And I think I like the pause, because then it's like if I'm sitting across from you or somebody I'm super close to and you're sharing it with me and I don't agree, my reaction is going to be very different.
Yeah.
Than it would be if somebody just does it online. So the pause, I think, is great. Because people they go, I don't know. If you can't help them, don't hurt them is kind of what keeps coming to mind. Is sometimes we just do things and say things, not we.
My brother's favorite saying is, "Don't yuck my yum."
I like that.
Don't yuck my yum. Like, just because you don't like it, don't come down on what I'm having fun and when he said that a couple times in different contexts, and I'm like, okay, like
I like that.
I won't yuck your yum.
It's kind of fun though. It's kind of fun, but it's it's really thinking about the way it's just still sitting with me. Like if somebody's saying something you don't agree with, imagine you're sitting across the table from your best friend. And then because you're not, now you may lash out at your best friend, but most of the time you're going to say, all right, tell me what you're thinking.
Why do you think that?
Why in the world are you feeling that?
And just be open to other ideas. This is coming from someone who appreciates alternative ideas, alternative medicine, alternative whatever, but I also appreciate.
And I'm so straight down the middle.
Yeah. But I also appreciate mainstream and whatever it is. So I like to chew on different resources.
Yeah.
Even so, I think a lot of things are crazy and I think a lot of things are good. So I try to be open-minded, but I also know I can be singular sometimes. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
it's a mess.
Rob just commented, it's not easy to find people who are real anymore. Genuine. I agree with that, Rob, because it's true. And I think that's what helps my friends and the people that I'll have these conversations with is I do think they're being real. I don't think they're hiding behind any false pretenses. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any what's in it for me. And that could be a part of it too. It's because a lot of these controversial things, the people that are telling people how they should think, they have a lot to gain and a ton to gain for whatever. We're not going down that rabbit hole, but for whatever reason, on either side, like any controversial topic I can think of, the most polarizing figures on either side have personal gain with them. And so it's tough. And I'm not singling out any one person because I don't want to get in trouble, but
anytime someone is seeking to control your behavior, they have something to gain from the conversation.
For sure.
I don't care if it's governments, not just ours, any others. I don't, if it's a brand, if it's, an influencer. Now you hope that,
Yep.
They're trying to keep everybody's best interest at heart.
Well, and I think that goes to Rob's point about being real and being genuine is, do I think companies and everything should make money? Yes. Do I want to make money? Yes.
Yes.
And I'm proud of that. That's why that's my job.
Money.
I like money. I like to buy things. But it's, but I'm going to speak, above all, I'm going to speak my truth. And if you agree with it, fantastic. And if you don't, that's fantastic too.
Yeah.
All I'm really pushing people to do is be, like Shelby said, pause and be open to hearing both sides and educating yourself. We need to just all pretend like we're in debate class in college for the next few years and educate ourselves on both sides of a topic, and then make the decision that's right for us. And then you get extra credit if after you make that decision, you don't bash the people that don't agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
That's really what this comes down to. It's respect.
Gold star.
It's I know you get a gold star. I don't think they do those anymore.
I don't know, but we totally need to start.
But back in the day, yes, Shelby and I will be passing out gold stars for everyone who can show mutual respect for people.
Pick up a piece of trash, gold star. Put away your shopping cart, gold star. Don't bash somebody.
Well,
gold
those
star.
are bashing. So the other first two are pretty obvious. But I think that's really it. Is let's take a minute to pause, and instead of immediately saying I'm done, say help me understand.
But I think the little details, though, I think a lot of it comes down to respectful little details. Just be respectful at every level as best you can.
As best you can. And I'm certainly not saying allow people to disrespect you. And the respect is really the thing. Is I'll cancel anybody that's being disrespectful to me personally, right? Not necessarily to my views, but to me personally. You start disrespecting me, oh, it's not good. I'm really sweet until you personally disrespect me, and then I'm not. But it's got to be from people I know. Like I've told you that before.
You're very good about that.
I'm very good about that. Like if people people in my bubbles, like that's the ones I care about. And if other people outside of that don't agree with me, that's okay, because my assumption is we probably have a very different set of circumstances. We have a different, they've not walked in my shoes and I've not walked in theirs. Yeah. And that's a critical thing to remember as we're thinking about all of these things that seem to be polarizing our country right now, is that no one's walked in our shoes. No one's life has been exactly like yours or mine or anybody listening. So we've got to understand that we've got an opportunity to move the ship a little bit. It's a big old ship. It's going to take a minute to get it going the right way.
I think it's
but
pebbles.
We need to try that.
It's pebbles in the ocean, ripples and waves. I mean, it's just do what you can with what you have where you are.
I like that. Do what you can
with what
you have where you are. Because that's what we're really talking about, is how can we help move all of us forward? Because I am tired of seeing, the high levels of depression and anxiety. And we just had a Miss USA commit suicide this week, and which was I don't know any of the background behind it. Obviously, there was a lot going on for some to lead somebody to that. But we're just hearing so much of that right now, that all these it's got to be all these internal things building up that people can't have discussions about. They don't feel comfortable talking. Because even my youngest, Kennedy, who's in middle school, she said to me yesterday, she had seen the article or seen something pop up on the news or something. And she's like, that's really sad. And she's like, why did she do that? And I was like, I don't know. I said there was something that she didn't feel she could talk to. It's a whole thing.
But that's like a whole other conversation.
It is, I know.
It's like kids that are exposed to news so early because they have it in their hands. Like I can't imagine as a parent how you could shield all this information.
As a parent, my answer to her is I don't know her story. And I said, I'm just sad that she didn't feel she had anybody she could talk to about whatever was bothering her. And I think that's the tie-in to this here is we're not going, if we are always feeling like we can't talk about what's important to us and talk about what's bothering us and be authentic, like Rob said, is if we're always feeling like that, this problem is going to get worse. So if we're feeling like if I say this, if I do this, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be canceled. If we're feeling that, the problem is going to get worse. It's going to compound. The divide is going to get bigger. So my encouragement, and the reason I want to have this discussion, is be open. Just talk to people, hear people. I'm not at all saying you have to agree with them, but present both sides.
Yeah.
Listen to both
the
sides.
tide is favoring one conversation or one side of the conversation at the moment. And I would just encourage everyone to be open to all sides of the conversation.
I think, and that's it. And then, our friend Ray just commented, no one has the right to tell someone you should do this or should do that. It's authoritative, and that's true. I'm gonna tell my kids that though, Ray. They don't listen either. But I think it's, and Ray just said this. I prefer to ask questions, which exactly what we're talking about is be curious. Pause.
And I've had to get better at that. Like
yeah.
I tend to think I know things.
Yeah.
And I've had to be curious, like stay curious.
From years of therapy, I've learned to say, help me understand.
Yeah.
Help me understand why you feel this way.
Yeah.
Help me understand this. Tell me what led you to this decision. What may, as opposed to just immediately going in. And I think, Ray, you got a good point. It's being clear, asking some questions.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And
Ray.
you don't have to agree with everything you do, but that's my encouragement to everyone that's listening and that hears this is the message I want to spread is pause, ask questions, and show some grace to people that don't necessarily feel or think how you are, because they are coming at it from a way, 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 way different place. We all are.
Yeah.
We all are. So be nice. Be nice to people.
Be nice, be good.
Be nice, be good. And what's your don't yuck their yum.
Don't yuck my yum.
Don't yuck my yum.
Sean Perkins.
I like it. I like it. All right. So go, pause, ask some questions, be kind to people, and above all, be graceful. Show some grace, show some love, and just get out there and keep doing you. So Shelby will be back with us again for another episode. But until next week, everyone, make it a great one. Go out and be nice to somebody that doesn't see eye to eye with you. And we'll see you next time.